Just the two of us.
Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. You and I.
Can we really make it, though?
I think so.
I hope so. Fingers crossed. Good evening and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 56. And yes, your eyes do not deceive you. It is me, Tristan Jutra, with my good friend.
Will Silver.
And that's it. Unfortunately, Tasia had to send her regrets this morning, and the late regrets from Gray, who is under the weather. So we're sending well wishes to Gray and nothing but animosity toward Tasia.
I send.
I mean, I hope she has a great evening.
Good thoughts to both.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sure. Medium thoughts.
Medium thoughts.
So here we go. Yeah, we thought it was going to be a slow news week, and it was until Sunday night.
Yeah, nothing to talk about tonight, right?
Nothing at all. So that's okay, because no one's watching. So let's start with Apple TV Plus winning Best Picture in the form of CODA. Actually, CODA won Best Picture at the Oscars, the Academy Awards that aired on Sunday evening. And it's a game changer in a number of ways. It had won top honors at the Screen Actors Guild Awards and the Producers Guild of America. It was in competition with Power of the Dog. And it seemed like in the last week before the Oscars, the momentum shifted toward CODA. And so a couple of the significant things about this. One is that CODA features a largely deaf cast. So CODA, C-O-D-A, stands for Children of Deaf Adults. And Stephanie and I just watched it last weekend, and it was quite a good movie. We thought we should watch something before the Oscars. You know, it's one of those things like the Oscars. Often, you know, many of the nominees are movies people have never even seen because they don't tend to give awards to, you know, the popcorn movies, the blockbusters and whatnot anymore. Sure. They used to, like Titanic won Best Picture in 1997, but not so much anymore. They tend to go for more the indie movies, the message movies and whatnot.
Can I throw a quick quiz at you?
Sure.
What other movie had sign language in it that was nominated for Best Picture?
The other one with Marley Martin, who was in CODA, and also starred the late William Hurt. Marley Matlin, that's her name. She, I think, won an Oscar for her performance, and it was called Children of a Lesser God.
Yes.
Is that what you're thinking of?
But also Dune had sign language in it.
Okay, well, I was going for the culturally significant one.
Yes. Okay,
so good. Dune, like the new Dune?
Yeah.
Just trying to think where.
They had hand signs. They were talking to each other.
Right. But was it ASL or was it like Dune SL?
Maybe Dune SL.
DSL. Different kind of DSL. Good to know. And Dune actually won a bunch of awards, mostly for the technical kind of stuff, the effects and whatnot, which I was glad to see. But yeah, so CODA's win significant in the largely deaf cast, which is breaking new ground there, or ground previously broken by Marley Matlin and Children of a Lesser God. Yeah. That was like 20 years ago or so, or more.
It's a good movie, yeah.
And Apple TV Plus. This is one of the first movies that won Best Picture from a streaming service, and I don't think it even appeared in the theaters at all. Previously, the Academy wanted only to nominate films that had been featured in theaters. And so I think there's been some nominees, past nominees, but no winners. Don't Look Up was a nominee this year from Netflix. Yeah. But in Hollywood, there seemed to be a shift. Like people really didn't want Netflix to win. Some of the people in the Academy and same with Prime Video, like Jeff Bezos, but Apple, maybe because the kind of money they're throwing around to buy some of these productions or produce themselves. So this CODA was one that Apple bought. They didn't actually produce it themselves, but because they forked over the money, they get the award. So, Will, have you seen CODA yet? And what are your thoughts on those two issues for the Oscars this year? Were you surprised?
Well, I wasn't that surprised. I haven't seen CODA. It's on our list. We're going back and backfilling some of the Oscar movies, so we hadn't quite gotten to that one yet. Um, I I'm very conflicted. You and I are big movie fans, and I would also dare to say not just movie fans, but fans of the experience of the movie theater or the cinema or whatever you want to call it. And so I'm conflicted because I would hate that experience to go away. But at the same time, streaming services are able to do things both with their movies and their formats of shows that A, they have the funding to do it, and B, they have the engaged audiences to do it. So I'm very conflicted. I don't necessarily have an answer here, but I think it is the future. I just hope that cinemas don't go away. I like that there's new players injecting blood and giving times to, or giving time and money to different stories like CODA or other things that may not necessarily have gotten the money or gotten the attention from big Hollywood producers or something like that. So I think this is a good time to be alive, at least in the sense of someone who likes movies. There's
Depends on what part of the world you're in, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I
What
mean,
good a
I
time to
think
be alive it is.
yes. I mean, we have a lot of bad things that we're dealing with, and many countries are dealing with bad things, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But I think in terms of entertainment, the entertainment world is seeing some injection of money and attention and cash and new entities pushing new things. And the other part to this is competition, right? So when you have these streaming services competing with each other, trying to get eyes on screen, you're seeing things that maybe you wouldn't see before because they're trying to really have blockbusters. So I think it's good in many ways, but I I would be lying if I'd say that I wasn't a little bit worried about the cinema experience going away.
I hear you. And of course, the last 2 years with the pandemic, the
Yeah.
theaters have had a tough time. Theaters have been closed for long
Mm-hmm.
periods of time in certain parts of North America and around the world, of course. So, fatal blow? Hopefully not. We've seen. I mean, I saw movies all throughout the pandemic while theaters were open, and I know we saw a few together, but there was still a bit of unease. Hasn't really been any reports of spread happening in theaters, but everyone has their own comfort level, especially when people are taking off their masks to eat and drink
Sure.
and the like. So, and then at the same time, we have trends like cocooning, which I think Faith Popcorn in the identified in her book, The Popcorn Report, which is probably 25 or 30 years ago now, talking about people building up their home comforts and home theater experiences being part of that so that they don't go out as much. They do more things at home. We've got video game systems. We've got huge
Yeah.
TVs. We've got surround sound, and there's fewer and fewer reasons to actually go out and see movies nowadays. And we know Gray, for one, he really enjoys his home theater setup, and so do we here as well. But if there's something that's a blockbuster, like a Dune, for example, or the Batman, I really want to see that on the big screen. We've beaten that
Yeah.
bat to death over the over the last year or so here, but hopefully that this isn't in some ways. I mean, it's great because it opens up the awards to more
Sure.
players and different types of films that may not ever make it to the big screen. Hopefully, it would be seen as an opportunity by some of these
Sure.
streaming services to show on the big screen as well, either beforehand or afterwards. It's,
Yeah.
hard to say like the order because they want, of course, to drive people to subscribe. But I think if you had it in the theaters for a bit and then to the streaming services shortly thereafter, and I think some hybrid approaches have been taken there. So I think it's one of those wait and see sort of
Mm-hmm.
situations. But yeah, so mixed news. I mean, good news for CODA for sure. Good
Yeah.
news for Apple, and definitely a feather in Apple's cap with the Apple TV Plus service generating interest there. And
Sure.
they've been taking the HBO approach, like not they're going for quality over quantity. And there's another series coming soon that we'll probably talk about next week that I'm really stoked for.
Me too,
but currently enjoying Severance at the moment. And so we'll see what is to come for Apple. And we'll see what next year's Oscars are like in the content department or the movies department. But other sorts of content that we were presented with at the Oscars this year, there's the slap heard around the world, of course. And we didn't want to dwell on that too much because, it's complicated. And I think it's distasteful in a number of ways. But there's two little tech angles that I wanted us to touch on quickly. One is, well, sort of for preamble, I just want to say this was a gift for memes around the world. We saw the memes being generated so quickly. So, as soon as this happened, go on Twitter and the memes are just coming fast and furious. But there was a lot of, reporting, a lot of reaction, a lot of hot takes. There was reports from, seat fillers on the floor and giving their reactions to what was the mood of the audience, and just the whole dissection of what happened before, during, and after Will Smith's now infamous slap of Chris Rock for telling a joke at expense of Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. But amongst all these stories and hot takes that were coming out, there was also, wouldn't you know it, some fake news. And I had seen, I can't even remember where, if it was I think it might have been on Twitter somewhere. And there's a certain personality that you'll see on Twitter. They like to be contrarian. Some of them are conspiracy minded to a certain extent. And one of the theories that started going around was that, if you zoomed in on the image, one of the still image of Chris Rock just before getting slapped by Will Smith on stage. Again, shocking moment, probably the most shocking moment in the history of the Oscars, aside from the whole La La Land didn't win kind of thing a couple of years ago. So even though the Oscars viewership is going down, they're trying real hard to, add some drama. And that's the other conspiracy, is that it was all staged. That was one of the trending hashtags on Twitter right away, staged. And it's like, you kind of, I thought at the moment too, this is just a gag. And it became apparent pretty quickly that it wasn't. So one of the theories that started going around was that as part of it being staged, that Chris Rock was actually wearing some sort of pad on his face to protect him when he was getting slapped. And people said, well, because he didn't seem to react too much. At first, when you hear him, it looked like a punch at first. And it became pretty clear that it wasn't, especially when you slowed it down. It was an open hand. But there was quite a loud sound. And I attributed that to the proximity of his lavalier, lapel microphone. So I think that's why it sounded worse than it was. But the image that people are circulating that, supposedly proves that he had this pad on his left cheek to protect him from slapping, just setting aside for the moment, that is really having a little pad on your cheek going to lessen the impact of a slap that much? Come on. Yeah. But what they had done is someone had actually up-resed the photo using AI. So they up-resed it to 8K from the original stream, which I was probably just 1080p, so not super high res, standard broadcast stream, maybe even 1080i. And they're using this as proof. And there is all sorts of artifacts. There are all sorts of artifacts that appear when you're using doing up-resing based on with AI assistance. And when you break it down, it becomes pretty clear that these are artifacts of the up-resing when you look at the other frames. Ones like just after the slap, for example, there's no evidence of any kind of kind of pad on his face or what have you. And so there have been some dissections of the stills in question to basically debunk the theories pretty quickly. But anyone has had any exposure to AI generated images or AI assisted enhancement know that there are going to be weird visual artifacts there. And it's not a pad on his face, people. Come on. Everything is a lie.
Yes. God, doubt everything apparently these
Well,
days.
well, yeah. And so the larger issue here is just like what can we trust? I think it's the take home message is when we see things, just question everything, right? Like don't assume. Just especially when things are so quick and there's the whole fog of war sort of thing going on.
Yeah,
That you've got just assume that there's going to be people trolling, sometimes malevolent actors, some people, or
sure.
sometimes people just trying to have fun. And this was, who knows what this actual case was, but it's not a
Yeah.
pat on his face. So yeah, so when you are consuming news, especially in real time, well, what is your general practice when you see something like what are the sort of things that trigger you, and what do you do to kind of double check?
Well, I think it's important to try to get the full story and to take multiple viewpoints. I often talk to also people that I know and trust, like my wife, and hear what their impression of certain things are. I'll also try to see what some trusted news sources, some reliable news sources, you know, I know this is pretty rapid. Wikipedia is too slow, but things like Wikipedia and CNN, and yes, those things can be wrong, and yes, those things can be altered, but you bring in enough of those pieces of information, and rather than just reacting to the first Twitter post or Instagram that you see, and just have a bit of a discerning eye and take a look at it. I mean, for me, again, I know we don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole with this Will Smith thing. I think for me, I knew it was real, or I felt it was real,
Mm-hmm.
um, when I saw his face, even though they had muted it.
Mm-hmm.
He's an actor. He's not that good an actor. That was real emotion.
Dude, he
Like,
won Best Actor. Excuse me.
yeah, sorry. He can't act like that. So that wasn't acting.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people lose their stuff before, and he clearly lost his stuff. We could go on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing for me too is I we talked about this off air, and I won't express my views here, but I I was very shaken by this, and I was very tempted to comment on things that I saw online. But what I have been doing the last few years with things like this, when I feel very passionate about something or I have a certain feeling about it, there's really not that much point to engage some people online about this, especially when they're saying outrageous things, because it can be trolling and it can be things that get you upset. So why bother engaging in them? So something like this, I more am passive and just see what maybe people have to say if there's something to learn about it. But personally, I say what you will about this approach, but I just don't see a point in engaging in it. Many times, people are going to have their opinion on it, or they just want to troll you to get a reaction out of you. So I just don't engage. So even though I had a very strong point of view and I read a couple of things that made me angry or I didn't like, and I was very tempted, I just didn't say anything because I don't think there's a point in it. I'm not going to feel differently about someone publicly being violent. And if somebody else feels that it was justified, that's their opinion. So, anyways, I think I've shown my cards to a certain extent, but yeah, so I haven't engaged online about this. This is the first time I've said anything publicly in any kind of way about it.
And I think that so many people are so eager to get their early hot takes in, their reactions.
Well, it gets
build,
views like
well,
on
yeah,
social media.
and get their, build their status and their cred, their street cred by getting on there quickly. And I totally get that. I do that in the form of memes when safe to do so.
By the way, I like what you posted on Facebook.
Thank you. Thank you. I was actually having second thoughts about it after I did, but I tried to make it a little bit vague. But then as news spread, people started to clue in what it was about. Vague booking is fun. because I think when it comes to breaking
You also
news,
didn't take a stance on it. Like I saw some people use that image and say things
yeah,
in that meme, but you didn't do that. You kind of left it where it was.
because at the end of the day, I don't think honestly my, anyone should give a crap about what my particular
Yeah,
opinion is. Like, what sort of narcissism is that? Quite honestly,
yeah,
so I think it's it's probably good practice to be wary of sharing any. Well, one opinions is one thing, but especially when the truth is still murky. So
yeah.
making any truth claims it's fraught territory. So I tend to avoid that. Anything that for some reason I feel really compelled to comment on, I try to do a bit of due diligence to sort out
Sure.
what the truth actually is, using multiple sources, because I've been very close to being tricked by things. And to be honest, when I saw this, when I was doom scrolling Twitter both Sunday night and Monday night, as the various streams of reactions came into this incident, I saw this story and I'm like, what? That looks legit. And then it's like, oh, wait a sec. You just always, because it's one of those things like, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is, right? It's probably too good to be true. I mean, it's probably false, right? But
Yeah,
that's the thing, is like, that's how people get you, and that's how disinformation and misinformation works.
sure.
It goes to our hot buttons. It's like, aha, I knew it was staged all along. It's like,
Yeah,
you know what? It's good to take a breath. You don't have to be first. And because the thing is too, is like a lot of times people don't retract their stuff, or
yeah,
they'll delete. There's so many hot takes from celebrities and politicians, many of which have been since deleted, which is quite interesting.
yeah,
But anyway, it's unfortunately the whole incident is a bit of a stain on the
yeah.
Oscars, but it's another example of the complicated nature of our modern media landscape. So
Yeah.
I'll question everything as the moral of the story there. Uh,
Agree.
so just to slap this horse to death here, one more little story that emerged as a tech angle to this was, it didn't take, one of the things we talk about here in Momentous is the wild world of crypto and cryptocurrencies, NFTs, non-fungible tokens. We haven't really got into DAOs, distributed autonomous organizations, all that much. Well, it didn't take very long for Katie Natopoulos, who is I think she is married to Joshua Topolsky, who's a prominent blogger and journalist in the tech sphere. And Katie, oh no, not married to, she's a colleague of Joshua Topolsky. And so she's a tech reporter in her own right over the years. I've heard her on Joshua Topolsky's podcast. That's what I'm thinking of. So she dug up a tech angle on this story pretty quickly, and it was something called SlapDAO. Now, I think this is a bit of a misnomer because, again, I said DAO is a distributed autonomous organization, and this is more of an NFT sort of situation where someone has minted a series of NFTs, collectible, non-fungible tokens, all to do with the slap. And it's ridiculous. And they're selling, a lot of these prices here, 0.002 of an ETH. So if you do some quick math on that, so what's, at roughly what? Oh, is it roughly $7? Is that right? Something like that. Yeah. So they're super cheap, but they're not really don't really have any intrinsic value, but just all sorts of strange crypto style meme takes on this whole thing. Very bizarre. Again, another symptom of our gotta be first media landscape combined with the Wild West nature of crypto, because of course, there's no one's got any rights to these images except for the Academy or ABC, the broadcaster there. But we grab these images and we put little, online culture / crypto culture sort of slogans on them and whatnot. And a lot of them are honestly just quite dumb. But I just thought it was interesting how quickly that happened. You get those NFTs are in the air. Obviously, this event was in the zeitgeist as well. So let's put them together and see if we can make some cash. And some of them are as high as 0.01 ETH. So that's like $3,500 US. Sorry, no, $35 US.
It reminds me of how like Twitter accounts sometimes shoot up right away after something happens. Like I remember a number of years ago, a black cat ran onto a pitch at a soccer field, and within 10 minutes, someone had set up a Twitter account for the cat. Taken a screen grab, put that as the picture, set up a new account, and was tweeting out as the cat from the who got kicked off the pitch. So, people do that kind of thing with Twitter accounts all the time. They're not making money off that, but again, you see that kind of thing all the time, right?
Wasn't there an Owl Kitty take on that too as well? I recall seeing.
Oh yeah. There is an Owl Kitty take on that. He scored a goal. Yeah.
So anyhow, if you want to get yourself a piece of history in NFT form, you can go and look for Will Smith's Slapdow on OpenSea.io, which is the premier marketplace for non-fungible tokens. But yeah, they're mostly just pretty dumb. But we're here to bring you all the dumb news in addition to the relevant.
You said it.
Tech news. So speaking of NFTs, there's a story from a couple weeks ago that we didn't get a chance to get to. Mark Zuckerberg confirms NFTs are coming to Instagram. He suggested that Instagram users would be able to mint things within that environment. So digital collectibles is one use case for non-fungible tokens because you can establish ownership, chain of custody, that sort of thing. Creators, if they program it into the NFT smart contract, can get commissions from resales of items, which is a neat feature. And the metaverse angle that, of course, Mark Zuckerberg is going for with Meta ties into things that you might want to buy for your environment or for your avatar in the metaverse. So Meta owns Facebook, Meta owns Oculus for the VR headsets, and of course, Meta owns WhatsApp and Instagram. And it's funny because for this play is coming from someone who in his personal life just wears the same basic gray t-shirt every day and does most of his shopping on Instagram and Facebook, he claims. So I don't know how many gray t-shirts he would need in the metaverse, but Will, tell me, how excited are you to be able to think about the prospects of minting and maybe even buying NFTs on Instagram? Because I know you're an Instagram guy.
I am a big Instagram guy. I mean, I guess I'd have to see the implementation of it. I have zero interest in this. I have zero interest in NFTs. I know we talk a lot about it.
You're a collector. Come on.
But here's the thing: is collecting is a huge thing. And I've gone on record as saying that I think maybe even on this live stream that I played Fallout 3 or 4. Sorry, I can't remember, 4, I think. And I was obsessed with collecting things. I'm a junk collector in that game. I just will pick up like bottles and drag them halfway across the map just to get like one bottle cap so I can collect something else. So I definitely have the collecting bug, but for some reason, this thing with NFTs, I think for some reason that there's not enough benefit, I think, or just there's not enough something about it for me. I'm big into records. I collect records even though there's no value in them, so it's not necessarily the money. It's, I think you got to want the thing or something like that. My wife often complains that I buy multiple versions of the same record. And I was like, yeah, but that one's blue and the other one was black. So she's like, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. So I'm not immune or free of collecting things, as you say, but yeah, for some reason there's not the thing about it for me. So.
Well, that's your privilege talking there because you've got space for actual physical goods. But the younger generations, they're priced out of the real estate market, so they've got to be content with digital goods to scratch that collecting itch. Yes. I mean, I say that somewhat in jest, but that is a reality for some people. Like they may not have the space to fill up with steelbook Blu-ray discs or vinyl or vintage mixers for that
yes.
matter, but if you can get some satisfaction from that. Because you think about it, like hockey cards, sure, they're a physical thing, but they're barely even there, right? So if you had a digital version of that,
Yeah.
which we saw with NBA Top Shots, especially
Sure.
with the video clips, like that's kind of cool. And it doesn't give you the rights, the copyright to
Yeah.
these clips or images necessarily, but just the fact that something is limited and you are one of the only one or one of very few numbers of owners of that, the whole limited edition
I
kind of
think
thing.
that part of it doesn't appeal to me at all.
Right.
I think I often collect for myself for things that I like, not compared to what other people have or don't have, or the exclusivity. That's never been a thing for me. The other thing that I think I've mentioned this in the past, I'm very addicted to a iPad game called Marvel Strike Force. And one of the things that you do in the game is you collect characters and you level them up. That's pretty much most of what you do in that game. And I'm obsessed with leveling up and getting the new characters when they come out. And I love Marvel. So for me, it's like, man, I really want Moon Knight because I like Moon Knight as a character and I want him. So there's this like feeling. Now everyone else in the game can get Moon Knight, but I want him because I think he's cool. And it's about me, not about whether there's one Moon Knight or 55,000 Moon Knights. And that I get to tweak them and get to use them in the game. So that for me is sort of like, people talk about the dance moves in Fortnite or something.
The emotes,
like
yes.
The emotes, yeah. So for me, it's not about the exclusivity or the provenance. It's about me having that thing and collecting it for myself. So I never collect things for the value. I think I learned that from the bubble of hockey cards and comic books in the 90s, where I was obsessed. I was like, oh man, I can go to university with this X-Men #1. Jim Lee's got this lenticular cover with blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that and $2.75 will get you on the bus now. Yeah. So...
and nowadays it's just more about, how many things can you line your casket with when the end comes?
Sure. I tell my wife to bury me with my mixers, and she said no, they're going out on the front stoop with a sign that says free.
Wow, that got dark.
Yeah. Way to hit me where it hurts.
Could we tempt you to get involved in this whole space with some football, also known here as soccer, related crypto type stuff? Because Lionel Messi just signed a $20 million deal with the Socios.com fan token, although the deal reportedly doesn't involve cryptocurrency. So I'm not sure if that means he wasn't paid in any cryptocurrency per se, but Socios.com, they create fan tokens for different sports teams, and it enables fans to have input on small decisions within their team's community. So this is kind of ties into what the DAOs we were talking about, the DAOs, the distributed autonomous organizations. And the more tokens you own in such an organization, the more it gives you more voting rights to make decisions for said community. So we'll see what form this actually takes. The question with this is he simply a spokesperson, or will they be doing some interesting collaborations with either Messi himself or his team? Who does he play with now? Will, you would know this, and I would.
PSG, Paris Saint-Germain.
There we go. So so now, would any football related crypto type things, and including NFTs, if they were to emerge from this deal, interest you at all? Because we know you're a big soccer fan.
I am a huge soccer fan. I have to say no. I'm reserving the right in all of this for something to change my mind. But as of yet, I have not seen anything that's changed my mind. I know and have seen a bunch of NFTs or people doing NFTs, like Justin Boya, I think his name, Booyah, who's an artist who had a bunch of NFTs. DJ Kubert, who, as you know, I'm a big fan. He's had some things on OpenSea and had some NFTs. Hieroglyphics, which is a band that I like, had Hydro Coins. Like, seems like a bunch of these things, which are to play off those ape things,
The
the
Board Ape Yacht Club.
Board 8 Yacht Club.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen a bunch of these things, and none of these have interested me enough to put money into them. And I kind of feel like you're the second person in on that Board Ape thing. Like,
dude, we should have been on that. We talked about it pretty early on, and you could get them for the double digits. And now the cheapest Board Ape I think is 37 grand.
Holy moly! Yeah, I don't get it, man. It's like if you're talking, that's like crazy money at that point.
Well, it's people who made money in crypto that are
yeah,
buying that kind of stuff. If anyone's using real cash and putting it into crypto to get one of those things especially when they're late to the party,
yeah,
yikes. That's do not put your retirement into that, like, unless you're or ever. But
yes.
Even any money, unless you're like really early.
But even crypto, why aren't you taking it out and like buying a Ferrari or something? Like, I mean, what why are you spending $30 something thousand on a picture of an ape?
Because that's a Ferrari is a depreciating asset. Well, it depends. Unless if you get a super rare Ferrari, maybe it'll go up in value. But the dream is with a lot of these quote unquote investments is that they will go up over time. But the people
save your money, kids.
If you're an insider and if you're in some of those, Telegram groups or Discord channels, then maybe you can get lucky. And Gray is plugged into a lot of those things as well. And I've been plugged into some in the past and have done reasonably well. But it can be a lot of work just keeping up. And there are a lot of scams. And there's a lot of ways to lose money. So it's very buyer beware sort of environment there. Yeah. So I just bringing up here the socios.com, which describes what they do as a service. And I think we're going to see more and more of from them as they partner with the various leagues.
Yeah. And those are two of the biggest, three of the biggest leagues in Europe. So that's Champions League, the Spanish La Liga, and the Italian Serie A. Those are probably the three biggest things in Europe. The other ones would be the English Premier League and the French League is pretty big too. Ligue 1.
So the promise here being able to own a share of influence of your team, influence team decisions, earn once in a lifetime rewards, be a super fan. So with what's happening in the music industry, I think we've talked about this before, being able to have like the equivalent of VIP experiences awarded to either token holders or NFT holders and the like. The idea of decision making and having some stake in a community or even the organization is interesting and probably attractive for a lot of people. But again, with all these things, it's so early, and to see how these things actually manifest and evolve in the real world is again TBD.
Can I also just say, from the football world or soccer world, things not specifically in the NFT or DAO world, but there's things like this, right? So fan-owned supporters groups or fan trusts that have like voting rights within the club for certain things. Real Madrid has a whole board that's voted on by the fans. The Bundesliga, which is one of the other biggest leagues, the German football league, they actually have a 50+1, so the fan ownership is 50%+1. So there are other things like this where fans have influence, and maybe that's kind of playing off that and adding the whole NFT DAO aspect to it. But there is some precedence for some of this kind of fan involvement in football. It's much less a franchise model like we have in North America with billionaires owning clubs or teams or franchises, where it's more of a community-based organizations in Europe.
So when you become a billionaire when you finally get into crypto and you make all that crypto money, maybe it'll be time for you to spend $440,000 on the world's thinnest mechanical watch, the Bulgari Octo Finissimo Ultra, which is just 1.8 millimeters thick. And the best part, it comes with a QR code splashed across its face, which ties in to, of course, an NFT artwork that's used as authentication for each piece. So here we're tying together a real world collectible. There's lots of watch heads out there, but
Is
having
that
the
what they're
QR,
called? Watch heads?
I don't know. It's like sneaker heads. I'm just making it up.
Okay.
So what if there was this sort of special edition Vestax mixer, Will?
Oh, you got me. You got me.
That had a QR code which linked to
possibly.
its digital certificate of authenticity. So you had an
Possibly.
NFT that went with it. But look at this
I was
watch.
just about to say, if I had $440,000, I can think of a lot of other things, including a Vestax QFO that I would probably invest money in. So
No one knows what that is.
I
What's
do.
the QFO?
Look
What's
it
the
up.
QFO? Well, okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Oh, fine. But you give me your thoughts on the appearance of this watch, the thinness. I know that you're a Fitbit guy at the moment, but have you ever been into watches at all?
Yeah, I had you might remember I dabbled in some cool like they're called Tokyo Flash.
Right.
And so I have a few of those watches. I've worn them once in a while. I still wear them occasionally. I think they're cool. For me, they weren't mechanical; they were electronic, and it was more about a techie angle. Maybe I'll wear one of them on the show sometime. So but those weren't very expensive. They were like $100 or something like that, and I had like 4 of them or something over the course of a year. They weren't that expensive. I think even some of them were like $50. So I enjoyed those, and I still have them. So I think this looks cool, but yeah, it's a little bit too rich for my blood. I was going to say hard pass.
How much would you pay for a watch that looks this cool and is this thin and, had an NFT associated with it?
I don't know. For me, like, first of all, the NFT, it's too much part of the watch. So that's...
Oh, you mean the QR code part?
Yeah, QR code.
No. Yeah, and they're ugly too, like robot.
Yeah,
parts,
it's
right?
ugly, and it's the feature of the watch. If it was one of the smaller gears, I might be okay with it. I mean, look, for me, some people are really into the mechanics of watches or into the mechanisms. I'm not as much about that myself. If you are really into that, my brother has some watches that are quite nice. He likes watches. For me, this isn't my type of watch. I mean, I might spend a couple $100 on something like this if it didn't have such a big QR code. But yeah, for me, this is not the thing. This isn't the kind of watch I'd like. And to be honest with you, Fitbit's changed the game for me because I did have some watches, and particularly one of them was very heavy, hurt my wrist while I was typing at work. And also, I got into measuring my stats, to my steps and calories burned and sleeping hours and all that fun stuff. So, yeah, for me, I'm just wouldn't wear a watch like this on a regular basis, especially not for 440,000.
So word to all the watch knockoff makers, wherever you are, maybe in East Asia, will pay up to a couple $100 for a knockoff of this, and maybe even more if you skip the QR code and put something else in there. Maybe put like the top of a turntable or something. And speaking of which, here is the Vestax QFO. What's the deal? How expensive is this? And I mean, it looks like a turntable with some mixing stuff built in, but there's only one turntable. So can you explain this to me?
Yeah, here we go. So basically, it's sort of an all-in-one thing. You have the mixer built in to the turntable. We have smaller ones now that are like portable ones that play like 7-inch records. So ones that pop to mind are like the Omni, the Headache Sound Omni, and the Reloop. I forget the name of it now, but there are other smaller ones. This was kind of the first big one. DJ Qbert is the one that sort of devised this.
When's it from?
Sorry?
When's it from?
About 2004 to like 2009, somewhere like that. So your average run-of-the-mill one might cost you $3,000 right now. I think I might have mentioned that, and they originally retailed for $1,600. I think I might have mentioned this. Qbert is selling some of his original QFOs, and he's selling the prototype for like $36 million on OpenSea.
Right.
So if I had money to drop, I might buy stuff like that. For me, that would be stuff to drop $440,000 on.
So, but I don't understand why there's only one deck though. Like if the whole point of a mixer is that you're mixing between two different decks. So
Well,
how
it's
does
for
this work?
scratching.
Oh,
It's for
just
scratching.
scratching. Okay, that's
Yeah.
it.
So you can sort of scratch just on one turntable. You
Mm-hmm.
can plug in like an aux input and have
Mm-hmm.
music playing in there. You could put two of these together
Mm-hmm.
and scratch on either one
Okay.
and have it mixed that way. So the front part that you see there with the words QFO, it's kind of hard to see, but it's kind of at the front there. That's the main mixer, but the other two are like the inputs, the up faders. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Pass. The
Well,
only
this
scratching
is
I'm doing.
partly about history too.
Yeah, of
And
course.
sorry, I don't know how this is about a 12-year-old mixer, but this is partly about like mixer history, right?
Yeah. The
Like
only
it's
scratching
not.
I'm
There's
doing is going
more
to be
advanced. Sorry.
the only scratching I'm going to be doing is related to psoriasis. So, because me and Jada,
Yes.
yeah, we all have our
I have
autoimmune conditions.
psoriasis too, man. We're psoriasis buddies,
Well, I used to
apparently.
have it on my elbow. Like I got it,
Yeah.
developed it about 30 years ago, and then about 5 years ago, it finally cleared up after like decades of putting cream on. And I think honestly, changing my diet a bit, I think seemed to help. I eat way less bread type stuff, and maybe there's something about the yeast or something that does that too.
Yeah.
And anyway, because yeast can be a thing. So moving on. So if you're a Russian oligarch who maybe has invested in a $440,000 watch, but if you happen to own a tech company, you may be uh, experiencing some staffing shortages because apparently there has been a real tech worker exodus
Mm.
from Russia, given the current situation in the Russian invasion of Ukraine and all the sanctions that have since been applied to Russia. Seems since the invasion began, there has been between 50 and 70,000 tech workers who have already fled
Oof.
Russia because going for either they disagree with the regime and or just opportunities are drying up because of the economic impact of the sanctions from the West. It's anticipated that between 70 to 100,000 more tech workers could leave Russia in April. So I think this file this under the category of like yeah, duh. That's
Yeah.
what it's
Yeah.
kind of like.
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
Yeah, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, and as a regime, if you're going to do stuff like that, and
Yeah.
that's maybe. I think, of course, Putin's been surprised by the solidarity of the West, particularly Europe, with the sanctions and whatnot. Honestly, I don't. The real rubber would hit the road if they shut off the oil and gas completely, but that's never going to happen because that would
Yeah.
inflict a lot of pain on European oil and gas customers. And I don't know how much people are complaining with the gas prices now, even here, like being 20 cents per liter higher than they were a few weeks ago. And people in the States complaining about $5 or $6 a gallon gas. It's like, well, I wish we had $5 or $6 a gallon gas, but ours is practically $8 a gallon here when you do the math. But oil and gas is already pretty expensive in Europe. If you've ever filled up a rental car in Europe, it's like the same in euros as it is in dollars, if not more so. In England, the same in pounds as it is here in dollars. So it's quite dear, as they say. So if you were to see those prices double or even more on top of that, that would be a lot of pain. And I'm not sure if they have the wherewithal the populace has the wherewithal to do that, because there'd be a lot of pressure upward onto the political powers if they were to go along with such an extreme measure. But that's the kind of thing that would really shut off the money coming into the regime in Russia, Putin's regime, which are doing what they're doing. So, of course, we are not geopolitical experts nor economics experts here, but pretty basic thing when you do things and that result in sanctions that's going to hurt your local economies, and certain people with portable skills are going to get out of Dodge.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why they're recalling some of their astronauts from the Russian space capsule. There was just a little story quickly here. NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei is scheduled to return to Earth in a Russian space capsule. So he has been collaborating with a couple of Russian cosmonauts, and there was some worry that he would not be able to get a lift home in the Russian Soyuz rocket down from the ISS. So they're in the International Space Station right now, and there was some concern that they were going to leave him behind. He's been on the ISS since April 2021. And, when you're in space too long, it can be a little hard on your body. But as it turns out, they're actually going to be bringing him home and or to wherever they're going to be landing in the ocean somewhere. And I imagine he'll make his way to the US. But it's one of those situations, and this happened during the Cold War as well, that sometimes you find a way to collaborate peacefully in space, even when your governments are disagreeing on certain
hasn't
issues.
that been part of the tradition, is that in space they have collaborated? That like you say, the Cold War, there's been somewhat of a history of putting geopolitical situations aside when it comes to exploring space and the space agencies.
I think part of the issue was there was some indication from the Russian space agency that they were going to leave him behind, but then they claimed it was a joke. So, like,
really funny.
Yeah. It's like, okay, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, just hope you're not on the Oscars anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly.
See what we did there, full circle.
Yeah, nice. Well
so
done.
Speaking of space, if said NASA astronaut was stuck on the ISS, one of the things that he may experience when you're in space for long periods of time is loss of bone density. But luckily, thanks to continued research in nutrition for astronauts, and especially with regard to thinking about possible future lunar and or Mars missions that hope to get to Mars by 2030. But at the spring meeting of the American Chemical Society, scientists presented their blueprint for a new transgenic lettuce, similar to the lettuce that we know and love, but genetically engineered to prevent bone loss. So I think they said you don't make friends with salad, but maybe you can hang on to your bone density with salad. What do you think, Will? Is that going to make...
I'm not a big salad fan.
All right, so here's my question for you, because we are taking this topic very seriously.
Yeah.
Is what kind of, if you were in space on a long-term mission for a year or two, Mars, it could be 3 to 5 years if you ever came back, what kind of food would you miss the most that you suspect might not be available on a space mission?
Bubble tea.
You're serious? Bubble tea is so terrible. They probably have that in space.
I love bubble tea. You're just being racist.
Yeah,
now.
Exactly. I love to chew my drinks. Okay, bubble tea. I think for me it would probably
crunchy.
be for me it would probably be fresh sushi. You don't want space sushi. You're gonna have a bad time.
I think I'd eat space sushi before I'd eat sushi at a 7-Eleven.
That reminds me back in the early 90s when I was doing mobile DJing and coming home late at night after like DJing a wedding or like a rowing club dance or a staff party or something like that. I have to admit that I did succumb to the late night 7-Eleven cheeseburger that had been on the warming rack for Lord knows how long.
Yeah.
In my early 20s, I was of a tougher constitution back then.
I guess so.
Now I just buy McDonald's hamburgers on sale when they have anniversary celebrations and keep them in the freezer for a couple of years. And that was a thing. So if not space lettuce or space salad, how about a giant potato, Will?
Is it a potato?
But it's not a potato. Doug, D-U-G, the giant potato, as it turns out, after genetic testing, is not in fact a potato. But look at it. We all wish Doug was a real potato because Doug was gigantic. And how much did Doug weigh? 7.9 kilograms, 17.4 pounds.
Holy cow.
But just, if you're watching, just look at it. And it even has its own little wagon to ride on. But it turns out it wasn't a tuber at all. I think it turned out to be some sort of gourd, actually. So I don't know how they got that confused. I guess they didn't want to chop into it or like fry it up, stick it in the air
Yeah.
fryer. Air fryers are all the rage nowadays.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we just got to pour one out for Doug.
Yes.
Might still
Poor
taste all
Doug.
right. Again, anything tastes great in an air fryer, as we've learned. We're air frying everything nowadays.
Well, my wife wants to buy one, so I hopefully will understand that soon.
Hopefully, one that has a QR code and an NFT to go with it.
Yes, and it's
All right.
$440,000.
So just a quick robot roundup here. Just
Sure.
a few quick things that I wanted to share because we've been collecting them for a couple of weeks and they are pretty cool looking. One is a bird bot that has been inspired by dinosaurs. And we're used to seeing various iterations of canine style bots and bipedal bots from Boston Dynamics and others. And of course, this isn't playing properly, so I'm going to refresh. Oh, here we go. This robot's anatomy is inspired by dinosaurs.
I thought this was pretty cool. I mean, just that they're at least looking or taking some design cues from other things in nature. I mean, I thought that was very interesting.
Looking at how dinosaurs may have walked as the first, some of the first bipedal creatures on the planet. Looking at things like ostriches as well. The Boston Dynamics projects were all very human type of bipedal robots, and of course, human leg joints are a fair bit different than those of birds. And as we know, the dinosaurs are actually old-timey birds in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
closer to birds than lizards, as it turns out. So, I think it's one of these examples of we're learning lessons from biology to help us design machines. One of the examples from several years ago was looking at the pads, of I think it was geckos and how they're able to climb walls and being able to use the inspiration from at the microscopic level of the pads from the fingers and be able to create kind of sticky style, even though it's not actually sticky. It's just the way things are gripping at the very, very minuscule level. And this is obviously more of a macro as opposed to a micro. So we've got bird bots. We've got cheetah bots. This cheetah robot taught itself to sprint in a weird way. So now we're pulling in the AI with the robotics as well. And this four-legged machine known as the mini cheetah hit its fastest speed ever, nearly 13 feet per second, which is about 9 miles per hour. So, this is one of these things where the AI was, they taught the robot some basic movement, and then as it learned what's success and what's not success, and then testing on all sorts of different surfaces, it just got better and better until it was eventually able to sprint. But this is somewhat similar in look, basic appearance to the Boston Dynamics robot dog style thing called, I believe it's called Spot, except this is a bit more cheetah. And when you see this thing running around, it's a little freaky.
Looks
especially
like a monkey or something.
Yeah, but just like, especially given that it has learned a lot of these movements by trial and error, it seems to be scrobbling along a fair bit. And now we will have these things in our nightmares.
Yes, we will.
Speaking of nightmares, well, I had a strange dream a few nights ago. I haven't had a stress dream in a while. Try to minimize stress, but I was supposed to be doing a class. It's been a while since I've not really teaching much anymore, but I hadn't finished my slide deck and I wasn't prepared at all. And I was like freaking out about that. And then I'm like, wait a sec, I'm not teaching anymore. All I got to do is wake up. And I did. But then when I went back to sleep again, I still kind of stressed out. It's like, wait a sec, I'm back in it. When you're not awake long enough, and then that's the worst.
Thank you for implanting that in my brain, because I have to give a presentation at work, and a big presentation in a few weeks. So that's got me freaked out. So I'm sure I'll start dreaming about that now.
Well, from going from nightmares to actual good dreams, how about Robo Burger? No. So last year we covered here on Momentous Live the robot hamburger makers, robots that could cook hamburgers and flip them and all that sort of stuff with all their computer vision and machine learning and all that good stuff. Now apparently there is RoboBurger in Jersey City's Newport Center Mall, which is this self-contained kiosk
Gross.
where it's a totally autonomous, and you can just walk up to it and it will make a burger for you on the spot. And if you're lucky, it will be better than a 2 a.m. 7-Eleven burger. Well, thoughts? Look at it. Juicy,
I
steaming.
just don't want to clean the machine, the maintenance guys. Clean out the fat fryer or whatever.
But look at it.
Man. oh,
No,
scooping out the fryer.
I mean, it's got to be, maybe it cleans itself like those self-contained public washrooms that are just like a phone booth. Maybe they could combine a public washroom into a RoboBurger. They could combine them both. You can use the washroom and get your burger at the same time.
It's more efficient that way. Just put the bathroom in the burger machine.
But seriously, this is the ultimate convenience. This is the kind of thing that you might see in a sci-fi movie, that's projecting.
For sure.
Like, you had the automats in movies like Dark City, where you would have your little compartments you'd get your food from, but you assume that food was made by human beings. But I got to say, I'm game. Like, if I would happen to have some reason to be in Jersey City, I would be heading straight for that mall and trying a RoboBurger. Yeah. The thing occupies 12 square feet. Like, it's the size of a photo booth.
Yeah.
Except you're getting a burger instead of a strip of photos. Are you in? Road trip?
I mean, I would watch you.
Fine. On the plus side, there's no lettuce. Not even space lettuce.
No.
All right. To bring us home on the robot arc here, there was a beautiful and new strange movie from South Korean filmmaker CODA, and it's called After Yang. And it takes a very different view of an AI advanced future. It stars Colin Farrell, who also stars in the Batman. It's unrecognizable in the Batman.
I'm keen to watch it.
And this movie is about a family robot who starts having problems. And apparently, it's quite emotional. There's a lot of feelings. And that's one of the things that has been a universal theme in robot storytelling for years. And one could go back to AI from Steven Spielberg, starring Haley Joel Osment as an android child, basically. Is at what point do robots or androids, which are human form robots, become such a part of our lives and our families that we develop emotional attachments to them? At what point do they gain rights? If they're harmed, how does that impact us? Just like people are devastated when something bad happens to pets, for example. But will they be more than pets? Will they have develop their own sentience, gain their own rights, and the like? So we have elder care robots in places like Japan, for example, where you've got aging populations and not as many younger people especially in the right professions to care for those folks. So that's starting to develop. And one of the things that we've always explored here on Momentous Live is the convergence of things like robotics and AI. I don't think there's going to be any crypto or NFT angle to these household robots here. We had, I think, Bicentennial Man was an old Robin Williams movie that told the story of a family robot who lived for centuries, right? What are your thoughts, Will, on what we see here from this trailer, but also the notion of a domestic robot who may ostensibly, start off as some sort of assistant or servant, but may even become part of the family, just like assistants or servants often become parts of families as well, too? Or is this too close to like slave kind of territory and so on? Like, could you see yourself getting attached to an assistant robot like Yang in After Yang here?
Sure. I mean, I build attachments to a lot of things in my life that are in close proximity, like my car or
your mixers.
my mixers. My pets are very important to me, and I care deeply about them. I had a cat pass away last year, and it was one of the most devastating things in my life. It also happened at a bad point in my life, so it was extra hard. But the other thing I kind of learned from that is, you know, cats are treated differently, or animals are treated differently than if a human was going through the same experience.
Mm-hmm.
There's different sets of rights. We have more of the decision making than the animal's own body to a certain extent. We're the ones that decide to put it down and things of that nature. That was emotional and hard for me. I personally didn't want to make the decision. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of a difficult thing. I mean, if we're talking about this movie specifically and just having seen the trailer, I think it's interesting in the sense that, a lot of the times when we see robot movies, even something like AI, um, it's usually a dark future. It's usually something where the robots are all going to kill us or something like that, or, humans have taken a bad turn on things. This seemed to be more positive than that, although reflective. So I thought that was an interesting take on things, more examining, and often these robot AI movies examine human existence. But like I say, often the twist is that there's some sort of dystopian future like iRobot or AI or something like that, where the robots are a danger, or Terminator 2 or 3 or whatever, where they're going to destroy us all. So I mean, I think it's interesting to examine it almost like, you know, a member of the family, and what does it mean to be human, and are they equal to us, even though we care about them? Does that matter? So I think there's some interesting subject matter there to explore, but it'll be interesting to see how people receive it, because normally AI robot movies, you want future lasers and jet cars and such. So are people going to want to see a introspective examination of what it means to be human? I've heard many times. I think you and I are both a fan of the Blade Runner movies, and many times people go to those movies thinking they're going to be big action movies, and there are some sequences in those movies, but that's not really the point. It's more about what it means to be an android. It comes from the old book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? What does it mean to be an android? When do you become a human? When is it
Mm-hmm.
indistinguishable to be an artificial being versus a real being? And the unfortunate nature of artificial beings who aren't given the same rights. So I think there's some interesting concepts here, and from the angle of maybe being more positive, I think would be an interesting twist.
Yeah, it seems like more of a quiet movie, like you said,
Yeah.
not a big special effects fest. At least in the action adventure sci-fi side of things, like the iRobots of the world. Uh, it, the notion reminds me a little bit of Ex Machina, which came
Yeah.
out in 2015, directed by Alex Garland, where you have a company employee wins a weekend with the company founder at his sort of retreat in the woods, and said company founder, his latest project is developing these androids, and they most seem to be female for the most part, and very lifelike, very convincing. The effects are amazing because there are parts of the android character's body that you can see through. They're transparent, and but then it taps into ideas about sentience and autonomy and liberty for these sorts of beings, right? Which is kind of interesting territory to explore.
Yeah.
So, After Yang is a bit more domestic, I guess, because he's part of a family there, as opposed to Ex Machina, where it's a slightly different setup, a bit different power dynamics for sure.
The other one I was thinking of, sorry to interject, is Westworld. And
Mm-hmm.
I think after a little bit that got too negative for me. I just, it was just so dark. And some people find that interesting, and I have enjoyed dark things. I'm not saying that I don't, but sometimes it's just not a world I want to occupy. Do you know what I mean? It's not a world I want to spend time in, even if it's just entertainment and watching vicariously through something. And that's what happened to me with Westworld. It just was so negative. And there's certain points in my life too where I just wasn't into stuff like that, and I think that happened to me with Westworld.
Yeah, you got to be in the right headspace for sure. That being said, I am pretty stoked about an upcoming season 4 of Westworld, which I didn't even realize was happening until a few weeks ago. So I thought season 3 was going to be it, but apparently season 4 coming soon to is it an HBO near you? Yeah. I'm not sure when. I think maybe later this spring.
My HBO's down the street. I don't know where your HBO is.
Okay. It's beside the 7-Eleven with the 2 a.m. burgers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to checking out After Yang for that quieter, more contemplative robot movie. So, as we near the end of Momentous Live episode 56, we have some picks to share, and you've got one for us. What is contract? How do you actually pronounce it?
I don't know. I've only ever read it. So he's the person behind this music sometimes goes by DJ Shy from the Ukraine. I've struck up what I'd like to think is maybe a small friendship with him. I've been talking with him the last few months or a few weeks. And he is in the Ukraine. If you look at his Instagram, because I'm part of this DJ community, you'll see a bunch of pictures up until a month ago of he and his family going on skiing trips and DJ gigs, competing in DJ competitions. And then about a month ago, you start seeing pictures of AK-47s and hand grenades and him doing patrols. He is now a member of the Territorial Defense Force. He has this music on Bandcamp. I actually enjoy the music too. I would encourage you, listen to it. If you like it, he could use your support. Bandcamp gives most of the proceeds on the first Friday of every month, which just happens to be April Fool's Day this week. But yeah, I encourage you to maybe support him. It's some good music, and I think he's a good individual, and obviously feel for what's happening in Ukraine right now. So
maybe it's pronounced counteract upon closer inspection there, but you can definitely see from his Instagram, which you mentioned, that lots of lifestyle photos, recreation, some DJ type stuff. And then as time goes on, you start to get a bit more into the current situation.
Yes.
Holding rifles and taking photos of grenades and
invaders must die. Yeah, and then his last picture is him in full military garb.
Wow. Yeah. Invaders Must Die. That's a reference to the Prodigy. That's actually a great track by the Prodigy, but also has a double meaning in this instance. And that's that's pretty serious stuff. So just all you have to do is imagine yourself, in doing what you do for your career, and then deciding to fight for your country, your region, what have you. That's so we'll check it out. What style of music would you say Contract is?
He has some stuff that's kind of breaks, some things that I might even verge on saying maybe a little bit EDM, some hip hop type influence there for sure. A couple of the tracks have scratching and some classical music samples. Maybe a little bit of ambient in there as well. I've enjoyed them quite a bit. I think there's 3 or 4. A couple of them only have 2 or 3 tracks and remixes, but there's an EP with about 6 tracks on there. They range from $1 US to $4 US. You can donate more money if you so choose. No pressure here on any of it. I just more want to highlight someone who I feel for, and I enjoy his music, and I encourage you to listen to it and support him if you enjoy it.
He has lots and lots of releases, and that is one of the neat features of Bandcamp, is that you can pay the standard price, or you can name your price and contribute even more money if you wish. And as we talked about a few weeks ago here on Momentous Live, some of the creative ways that people have been supporting individuals directly in Ukraine is by purchasing digital goods. So like this, whereby someone doesn't have to make a lot of extra effort to deliver. It's all, in this case, fulfilled by Bandcamp, since you're buying digital copies of the music. We talked also about buying digital goods from artists on Etsy. We also talked about people booking nights to stay, but not really stay, through Airbnb for hosts from hosts in Ukraine. So I'm sure there's other neat things like you could do like that to support people directly, as well as, of course, going through the traditional channels like the Red Cross and other organizations, Doctors Without Borders and the like, especially when they have matching. If you have other philanthropists who are matching, or governments that are matching, even more bang for your buck there.
And my wife and I have donated to various charities, including the Red Cross. But it's also nice to counterbalance that with actually putting some money in an artist's hands who's on the front lines. So you give to the broader charities, and there's examples like this. And as I mentioned before, one of the reasons I wanted to highlight it now, I've been sort of holding on to this for a couple of weeks, is that again, Bandcamp, from what I understand, gives all of the money. They don't take their cut on the first Friday of every month. There still is a transaction fee that is paid. You don't see that transaction fee. That's just behind the scenes. So they don't get 100%, but they get most of it. Bandcamp often takes about 15% from what I understand most other times.
So they'd probably be getting 97.25% or something like that. The credit card fees are often like up to 2 3/4%, depending on the rate negotiated with the platform there. But and credit card companies don't usually waive those fees. So it's nice for Bandcamp to be doing that once a month to get more dollars into artists' pockets, and especially when they're in high risk situations like this. So that's a great find.
You'll often see artists just beyond this. Around this time, I'm on Bandcamp quite a bit. I buy some music for small artists there and things like that. And you'll often see around this time people send you emails saying, "Hey, I've discounted my whole collection by $5 or something," trying to generate more sales, because if they can increase, they get more of the percentage. So, it's a numbers game at that point. Yeah.
And Bandcamp does, in some cases, have provisions for the purchase of physical goods, such as like limited edition vinyl or cassettes or T-shirts. I'm not sure how those are fulfilled. It may vary by artist, but I would, if you're not sure, I would encourage you not to order physical goods from any artists in Ukraine, because they're probably a little busy right now. Yeah, digital goods all the way for sure.
Yeah, and I've only ever bought digital goods off Bandcamp, but I have been tempted a couple of times. I see that sometimes artists will actually do limited pressings of either cassettes or, like you say, vinyl, or a special T-shirt, and only have a limited number. If you're a collector and love NFTs, maybe that's something you're interested in. So yeah, they might only make like 25 shirts, but then that will help spark maybe people buying other products or digital goods. So
great pick. And where did you hear about that artist?
Through the community. So on
DJ community.
The DJ community. So on Instagram, there's actually another individual as well, who people have sort of been posting and supporting them. He this DJ Shy actually finished second in a Ukraine scratching competition a couple of years ago. So somewhat known in the community. And again, word kind of gets around.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
that's one of the upsides of online communities.
Yeah,
certain online communities, they rally when certain members are facing challenges that are unimaginable for most of us.
And like I said, you showed it where that very stark contrast between fun pictures with his family or DJ gigs and then suddenly there's just a picture of an AK-47 and a
Yeah.
hand grenade. So,
And most of us wear camouflage for fun, not so much out of necessity. So.
yeah.
All right, my pick is not nearly as important or consequential, but it does represent a little opportunity to watch a landmark documentary called Helvetica. It came out 15 years ago, and it's available to stream for free from March 23rd to March 30th. So we've got one more day. So you can go to the website at ouprettythings.com/Helvetica. We'll include that in the show notes as well. If you are a typeface and nerd at all, typography nerd, I really enjoyed it. And Helvetica is one of the most, the simplest, most beautiful fonts. It has been used like crazy over the years in advertising and other places. I just highly recommend you check it out, especially being the design kind of guy that you are, Will. I think you would enjoy it. And you've got one day left. That's what you're doing. That's your homework tonight. Go and watch Helvetica. And
go watch it.
What it does is it shows you just how pervasive Helvetica is. And Helvetica, I believe, was derived from earlier typefaces such as Accidens, Grotesque. And there are newer versions as Helvetica Neue and others that have been inspired by Helvetica, the bastardization known as Arial, which is standard on Microsoft Windows and is through Microsoft Office as well. And it's a trash font. But Helvetica, especially at its various weights, the heavy weights to the bold are quite nice. And some people get a little burnt out on it because it is so prevalent.
Some people call it Helvetica
with two L's. Yeah. But if you're interested in design and typography and any of that sort of thing, even if you're interested in advertising, check it out because it's really interesting look into that whole world. And I love stories about worlds that we barely know that exist.
Exactly.
And so, other than that, we got a couple of projects to share this week. One is from our lovely and talented Tasia Custodi, who this week has her YouTube video all about how to quickly clear Google Drive storage. One of the things that she shares in this video is something that a lot of people might not realize is that your Google Drive storage, I believe, is shared with your Gmail storage. If you've got one Google, so everything in your Google account, you have one pool of shared storage, and I believe it's about 15 gigabytes. So she explains in this video maybe how to trim the fat a little bit, especially if you're getting a little tight, because if your Google Drive is full, she says you won't be able to send or receive Gmail messages. Another reason why I am not a fan of Gmail. Thanks. But not everyone can host their own email. But definitely check out Tasia's video at youtube.com/Tasia Custodi, and you can see all her work at tasiacustodi.com. And the other thing we're gonna share, right, Will?
Yes.
Finally, at long last.
Yes.
Even though you had sent it to me a few weeks ago by text, and then it kind of slipped through the cracks, and I got really busy with work. Our very last video, finally, from the BC Boat Show, which you and I attended in September.
What?
Yeah,
that was long ago. It seemed like yesterday.
But that was a fun road trip, and I look forward to doing that again. In this video, we talked to Alistair Crawford from the Boating Safety Division of Transport Canada. So he gave us some tips, talked about ways to stay safe, some of the essential equipment, including the certain types of equipment that you shouldn't use in certain situations as well. So that's why it's important to check out this video. And then we will get onto finally editing our videos from the Vancouver Fall Home Show.
Can't wait.
This is a challenge, folks, when you've got full-time plus gig, you run your own businesses, for example, and then you got some other stuff you do on the side for fun like this. So I'll be finally dumping all the footage there and sharing with you, Will, and hopefully in a couple of weeks, folks will be able to enjoy some of the interesting interviews that we did at the Vancouver Fall Home Show as well. But we have a playlist on the YouTube channel with all the interviews we did from the BC Boat Show, and as well as other interviews we've done in the past from CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, and of course all our Momentous live videos too. Well, what was the thing you enjoyed most about our little day trip over to Victoria for the BC Boat Show in Sydney?
Well, I mean, I think the thing that uh, kind of struck me the most was just that it was nice to be back at something like that. First of all, you and I hadn't been doing this kind of thing for a little bit. So it was our first foray back into it. But also because of the pandemic, it was one of the first things that was going, period.
So many events have been canceled. Yeah.
So many events have been canceled. This was one of the very first. It's not exactly the most prestigious. It's very interesting for you and I. We enjoyed it, but it was a nice sort of kickback into things, and I enjoyed it from that perspective.
And we got to interview some entrepreneurs in the boating space. We got to take a tour of a $10.5 million yacht, which was pretty fun. So the neat things that having a little camera crew and looking reasonably professional can get you into, and people you can get to talk to. And that's why we do this.
And we almost didn't make our ferry. Are we talking about the behind the scenes?
I forgot that part. Here? Really? Did we? Oh, in the morning one?
Yeah. So we you stalled or couldn't start your engine, and then over the loudspeaker, the person said, "You in the blah 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 car, stay where you are." And then you stuck your hand out and gave a thumbs up, and some guy came and jumped us, and we barely made it onto the ferry.
Yeah, jumped us in the good way. Jump started us, not like didn't
not like
us. Yeah.
Not like Will Smith
or Jussie Smollett. But not really. So fake news. So yeah, I totally forgot about that. So that was on the way home because we were charging our phones and draining our car battery.
I think like laptops and stuff.
Oh, exactly right. Yeah. But luckily they did the little jump start and we left the car running for a little extra time to charge the battery up. But now with the EV, it won't happen as much because we got mega battery. The only concern is actually being able to get to our destination.
Yes, there you go.
But looking forward to more events soon. Me too. Yeah, check us out at Momentous.tv, on Facebook.com/MomentousTV, Twitter.com/MomentousTV, Instagram.com/Momentous.tv, and for YouTube videos like the ones at the BC Boat Show, search my name, or you can go to youtube.com/TJMJutra and look for the Momentous playlist there. Someday we'll have our own vanity URL, but we got a long ways to go. So, like, subscribe, smash all the buttons, one person at a time. And
smash your window.
Smash your window, jump your car. All the good things. And, well, it was just you and me, but, we haven't done it for a while, but it was lots of fun as always. And we look forward to being reunited with Tasia and Gray next week. Of course, we wish them all the best. We hope they and everyone else, and you will, we hope that your week is truly momentous.
Wow.